Welcome to OBM Unscripted, where the systems get sassy, tech tantrums are tamed, and real talk rules the mic.
We're your hosts. I'm Christy Beard, your go-to strategist and business coach.
I'm Manita Brooks, your operations and tech whisperer.
And I'm Lena May, the guru of systems and workflow magic.
We're all accredited OBMs, and we have seen it all.
If you've ever wanted to scream into a client brief, cry over Zapier, or Google, "Can I invoice for emotional labor?" you're in the right place.
This is your space for behind-the-scenes stories, hot takes, and community vibes for OBMs, VAs, and online service bosses.
Real talk, real answers.
Unfiltered,
Unscripted.
Hey, welcome to OBM Unscripted. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christy with Maniba and Lena. We're here today to discuss rejection and dealing with rejection. And you both have experienced fresh rejection this week. So let's jump in and talk about how that feels and how to work through it so we continue to serve our clients. Maniba, how would you like to start?
I would almost want to start with Lena's story because when we're talking about it, we're talking about top of the funnel rejection versus already through the funnel rejection. So I think, Lena, kick it off.
That's true.
All right. So I had a discovery call last week. It was great, only the client was concerned about privacy. And I hit during the discovery call all the topics. She's worried about XYZ, and I gave her resources after our call, LastPass, and changed the passwords as soon as I'm done, and I only need access for the 2 weeks that you're looking to have this done, over and over and over. And by the end of the call, she was pretty receptive. She said she'd get back to me. And then yesterday she called with some more questions that literally turned into, I'm just not going to go forward. I'm just not comfortable. And it all came down to, no matter what I said, even though she needed help, she was not ready to let go of the control of her business in order to get the help that she needs. And that hurts me as an OBM because I know I could help her and I know I'm really good at doing what she needs. She is the bottleneck in her business. So it's very hard to tell somebody, you're the reason why you can't grow because you can't give up control even for 2 weeks. And that was a big blow to my ego because what she wanted is something that I am really good at with real estate CRMs. It would have been a nice payday for me too. But in the end, there was just no way to convince her to let go enough to let somebody help her. And that is kind of a rejection that I was not prepared for. I was so sure I had this in the bag until yesterday's call.
So you deal a lot with real estate. Do you find that is a common theme with real estate agents? And if you do you think it might be something that you could work into your marketing and use the elephant in the room, so to speak, as your pull to get people in?
No, because most real estate agents, they're either one or the other. They're either full control or they give too much control of their business. So there really is no middle ground for them. I'm either dealing with one or the other. That's why when I have my discovery call, I'm really good at asking the questions to figure out what kind of control freak they are and how easy it's going to be for me to gain them as a client.
You touched on a good point too that we kind of hit on last week, is knowing who's a good fit. And that also plays a part in if they want you to become a dentist where you're pulling information out of them and they don't find it easy to delegate, that's also something to know ahead of time so you at least know what you're getting into.
And I think a lot of these conversations that we have with potential clients, it's part of the qualification of taking them on as a project or as a client that you want to move forward with, because in the moment it feels really bad because you kind of see the potential and you're like, I know I can fix this, and something comes in the way, and then you finally have to deal with that rejection. It stings. It really does in the moment because you really, really want to help. And I think that's the OBM profession in general attracts that type of personality where we just want to help. And then when you're coming up against something like this, where you're like, I know I can get you fixed in 2 weeks. You will be so happy after this, but then you deal with that rejection right on the front end. It does hurt even though it's hard, we try and take a step back and be like, if I had taken this client on, what would that have looked like? Would they even be receptive to the changes I'm suggesting? Would they be micromanaging? Would they just be like, oh, I just don't like it, to scrap the whole thing? And would all your work go down the drain? So there are a lot of potential pitfalls that could come with saying yes to every single client, or every client saying yes to you. But it does hurt. It does sting.
Which leads us to what happened to you this week.
Turn.
Bag of rejection this week.
Right.
I think it's something to be said about how often, as entrepreneurs, not just OBMs, you're gonna face rejection in your business, whether it's top of the funnel where you want that client's not gonna, sign for services with you, or you're working with the client and you get these little micro rejections in between. Sometimes it's a little bit more than a micro rejection. Thinking about it, I've actually have a few rejections this week, not just the one. So one example of a rejection that's a little bit more benign and it's a little more understated than a no, I don't want it. It's the type of rejection that I've seen where, okay, I've completed the deliverable, whatever the deliverable strategy is. I won't get into too much detail because with all my clients, I do sign a confidentiality agreement. So I won't highlight a lot of the details of their work. So the deliverable was received, and the client then proceeded to say, I've got a friend who's just going to check this. Okay, great, friend. Hi, friend. Who are you? I don't even know who you are. But so it's like, okay, yeah, sure, but you've got the deliverable. So, okay, are we good to implement? Are we not good to implement? And so the friend needs to check this. Okay, so friend is now checking it. Friend is, I guess, expert in their respective field, and giving perspective based on what they know about that specific topic, not necessarily with the depth of knowledge that we try to gain when we work with our clients. And friend decides, well, we need to make X, 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 and X changes. And client is like, we're going to do that. And that really does throw a wrench in your own process, because then you're like, wait, did I do something wrong? Was there something I missed? And you start questioning your abilities, where you're like, and that sneaky imposter syndrome loves to creep up and become a monkey on your shoulder and say, maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you didn't see, maybe. But then again, in the moment, it stings. But then you have to force yourself to take a step back and look at it as a big picture. Because at the end of the day, this is a business transaction. And even though we like to really get involved with our clients and believe in their mission and in their business and say, you can do all of these great things, in the end, it does come down to a business transaction. Did you deliver what was agreed on? Yes, you did. Okay. And once it's in the client's possession, it's truly up to them to do what they want to do with it. When you're building a system, that does throw a wrench in things, because this is the puzzle piece needed to fit with other puzzle pieces. So when someone is coming in and, like tinkering about, it does affect the rest of the workflow. But then you take a step back and say, has this client now shifted from being my ideal client to now someone who's just in a different place, and now they need to potentially move on? Or can we recover from this? Can we not recover from this? So then you kind of step back and have to take a look at the big picture, per se.
You made a good point. I think what I would also consider is having a discussion with the client and saying, hey, have I done something that would make you feel like you need to have my work checked? Because if that's the case, then let's jump on a call and let me know what I need to adjust, and let me know where your concerns are, so that we can save time in the future and I am able to help you in a more efficient way, and in a way that your mind is thinking that I'm going to do the work in this way. Then let's get on the same page.
And it also gets a little bit complex when you're working with clients who are neurodivergent, because sometimes it's not from a place of malice. It's from a place of safety, where, they may feel like they're second guessing their own judgment. So now they need a safe person to validate their decision. So again, it's not necessarily your work, but it's, oh, I'm not sure about this. This isn't feeling very safe right now. I need to get a safe person to confirm that this is okay and I'm doing the right thing and I'm making the right choice in my business. So it does get a little bit tricky, and it's very important to not personalize it, even though it's so hard to do, because you've put in hours of work on this particular project. And then now you've got someone on the surface second guessing it, but then bringing it back and realizing that this is a cry for safety, not necessarily a critique of your work.
That's what I was going to say. Sometimes it's so easy because we get so involved in what we're doing. And as doers, we want to please as well, because obviously we're in the business of helping people. And when they don't feel like we're helping them or making progress or whatever, it is easy to get offended. That's like the one tip I could give anybody at any time is it's business. Don't ever take it personal. And if it feels personal, then just for you and your headspace, just take a step back and make it more transactional and try not to personalize the relationship, even though you want to get to know your clients and you want to be on a like a more friend type or a friendly type transaction. And the only real way to do that is to get to know them, but you still have to have that boundary in place so that when things go that way or they get skewed, then it's easier to compartmentalize and not take it personally, so that you can have the headspace that you need to keep doing the job that they're asking you to do, not only with that client, but other clients, because it does trickle in and it can affect your work with other clients as well.
And it makes me think too, Maniba, a lot of times it is true. They're coming from a place where this system does not feel safe to me, and they are out of their comfort zone trying to use those steps that you've put in place for them. But occasionally, and this has happened to me, I have delivered to a client who absolutely hated the system because it was too simplistic. And I was like, it's simplistic because you'll use it. I know you like complexity, but the more complex it is, the least likely you are to use it. And that's some hard rejection to take too. You need to make this more robust. If I make it more robust, you will never, ever use it. You put your heart and soul into making something so simple that, a 5-year-old could do it and they're like, oh no, I don't like it. So now you've got a new form of rejection. And if you're package based, those hours are now gone and you're basically working for free. So trying to keep that, step by step. Are we good with this? Great. And the best way I can do that with my most recent client is as I built something and completed it, he got a notification at the end of every day. This is what I did. Please go and look at it so we can make changes now. And there were some surprises in there. I did some things that he was not expecting, and in a good way. He was just like, oh my gosh, you are giving me so much more than I thought this was going to be, versus the client who was like, it's too simple. You've got to find that balance too. They're both ideal clients, but one just thinks a little differently. And no matter how much we try to create a system for them or a workflow for them, they may want it a little different.
How are you guys picking yourself up this week since these rejections are so fresh on your mind? What's your headspace look like? What are your thoughts and how are you processing things this week so that you can move forward?
You know those little standees that they have in front of used car dealerships with the little wind guy that just goes up and down, he gets knocked down, he gets back up.
Right.
So we kind of feel like that. I think this is one of those weeks where it's like, hey, it's great, and then something else comes and hits you in the face. It's going back to my imposter syndrome survival guide. As I go back and I read testimonials that have come through, I go back and look at previous client work. Sometimes I talk to other clients that I have. In the case of the one of the other multiple rejections I've had this week, it was a client that unexpectedly cut the scope of the project dramatically and without a lot of notice, of course, because we've got the contracts, but at the end of the day, the contract is really only enforceable if you're going to take it to court. And this wasn't one of those situations. And of course, it has a financial impact when you're 4 days away from the renewal of a billing cycle and you automatically get this scope cut. And it's like, well, it's happening whether you like it or not. And it puts on a little bit of extra pressure when you're like, I'm still in the growth phase of my business and there's some financial demands that have to get taken care of. But now I'm going to have to find an alternate really quickly because bills are coming and I'm not sure what to do about that. that puts on an added layer of pressure. And I know that could be a whole other episode on just how you survive through your growth phase, but you really have to step back and first of all take care of my emotional needs first, because for me that's priority, because if I'm not in a good headspace, then nothing really works well. So I've got to get my game mind back on, go back and read my testimonials, maybe talk to a different client where things are going well to kind of reset your perspective that hey, it's a project thing. And then to be able to quickly pivot and be like, okay, how do I now replace this income that's just evaporated and my rent is due in the next 4 days? So thankfully, you kind of get yourself grounded first, then look at immediate concerns, then move forward from there. That's kind of with any rejection. That's always my playbook per se. So get myself focused. What do I do next? And then execute on that.
Yeah. I'm the same way, but when I get rejected and start doubting myself, my first instinct is to just shut off completely. I have to give myself a time limit for shut off. I'm giving you 2 hours today to shut off. And then after that timer goes off, you need to get up and figure out how you're going to solve the problem. That's exactly what I did. I gave myself 2 hours yesterday of just, oh, woe is me. At the end of the 2 hours, I went and walked 1.5 miles just to get some sunshine. And then I came back and then my mind was like, okay, this is not your only lead. You have other leads. You have other things that you're doing. Let's go back to basics. When you first started your business, what were you doing that led the clients in? So once my head was right, I had to be like, okay, this worked for me in the past. So let's go back to the very basics. Let's pretend I'm brand new, because essentially that's what business is. You're brand new all the time. And then let's take those steps. And Christy was kind of my accountability buddy yesterday, because every time I did something, I don't think she knew it at the point that I had been rejected. Every time I did something, she would get a text that I did it. She was probably like, what is Lena doing today? It was just like, I'm going to be accountable to somebody. Christy's going to be it today.
I was rooting you on. I was like, you got this, girl. Now I know the backstory.
Yeah, now you know the backstory. Lena was having a rough day.
Yeah.
Dealing with rejection becomes a professional sport at some point, because you get, as an entrepreneur, you get so much practice with it every single day. And sometimes you hope it gets easier. I don't know if it does. I don't think I've reached that point yet, but sometimes you sit with it, and you sit with it for more than a week. Like I wish I could give myself a timer and say, that's it, you're done. Because even though I will go ahead, get myself grounded, do what needs to get done and push through, the feeling will still sit inside of me, and it will impact my sleep. It'll impact, again, depending on how I perceived the rejection. Because again, and I know I've talked about this before, and Lena, this is when you came in clutch for me, is with a potential client rejection. And I couldn't shake it, and I don't know why I couldn't shake it. And I went through my process and I couldn't shake it. I reached out to Lena, and Lena's like, okay, yeah, it's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. But then I'm still sitting with the feeling. And sometimes it's hard to get rid of the feeling, even though intellectually, you've either followed your steps, you've done everything you can. This is something out of your control. Sometimes the feeling still sits. And maybe with time, it gets better as you keep trying to distract yourself. Maybe there's something you have to look at further, like, why am I personalizing this? Having a good therapist is helpful in times like that, because sometimes you can really get to the root of where that feeling of inadequacy is coming from, that this seemingly, fluffy rejection that happens every day, why did it hit you so hard? So having a professional that you can also go and be like, hey, okay, it's been a week and a half. I don't know why this is bothering me so much. And sometimes you can find out some really cool things about yourself.
I think it's when you're dealing with rejection, or really anything, I think it's important to look at how you respond to it and don't let it paralyze you. Always action. And even if you do nothing, then there is a result of inaction as well. I think the goal would be to realize what state you're in and then try to figure out how to move forward, but always be moving in some direction and try not to let it paralyze you, which is very easy to do because then all the self-doubt kicks in, all the imposter syndrome. It's just like you get hit, and if you're not careful, it can take you down pretty quick.
The points that I was going to make for what Maniba said is that, at least for me, movement is key to getting through whatever I'm feeling. So if that feeling is sitting with me, I have got to get out and move, whether it's a walk, a swim, a something. Move your body for 30 minutes, because psychologically, as your blood is flowing, your brain is getting endorphins now versus you just sitting there in that wallow. I definitely get out and just move your body. It will make you feel so much better.
I have found too, if you just try, find something else to focus on, even if it's just like an hour, read a book, listen to a podcast, something other than what you've been focusing on, then that also helps you to just keep moving forward. And it gives you a break. It gives you headspace.
And also
getting those
recognizing that
endorphins.
with our fellow neurodivergent people, sometimes you can't just switch it off. So
Yeah.
again, make sure you do have your own coping strategies that work for you, because sometimes you can't. And that's just how your brain is structured.
Yep.
Okay. Well, ladies, I think we have exhausted our time today, but I love the conversation that we had, and I can't wait to do more next week. Thanks for being so transparent.
Anytime. That's why we're here. We love our OBM community. We know they feel it too.
Definitely respond in the comments with your experience, because we would love to hear about it. Just to know that we're also not alone in this crazy world of rejection.
Yes.
For sure.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you all next time. Everyone, just wanted to come in and give a quick update, because it's been a few weeks since we recorded the last episode, and the client situation that I talked about, where someone had come in and had all these brilliant ideas, and the client was like, let's do that. So we went ahead and did that. We made all the changes, and within a few weeks, the client realized that maybe it was too much and it started to feel a little bit too overwhelming for them. So we went back and reverted to the original plan that we had going on that was specifically tailored to the client. So this kind of thing happens all the time. Clients always want something shiny and new until it starts to feel unfamiliar or chaotic. Change is hard for us and for them. If a client is backing out, rejecting your ideas, it's not always about you. Sometimes it's just the fear, the doubt. It's too much too fast. If it is about you, and maybe if you did miss the mark somewhere, it's okay, because the key is don't take it personally. Stay curious. Don't get defensive. And that's where the good stuff happens, because then you have a chance to take a look and see, is there something you actually missed as you're working through this process? The client also has a chance to work through this process with you. And then you both feel like you're on the same level ground, working towards a collaborative solution rather than butting heads and being at odds with each other. So I think it's better just to be the anchor rather than the bulldozer. Stay calm. Let the client circle back when they're ready. You don't have to push it. And at the end of the day, even if they are going to go back to their original plan, they'll remember that you were the one who made it feel safe and easy to move forward, and not the one who forced it or was butting heads against them. As we all know, being an OBM is equal parts planning and pivoting. You have to hold the big picture while managing all the meltdowns too. That's part of the job. But I just wanted to share that little moment of reality in case any of you are dealing with the same kind of client loop. You're definitely not alone. But if you've been there or you're in the middle of it right now, come on over and share your OBM stories in our community groups. We are on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We'll add the links into the show notes, and hopefully this has helped, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.